are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
I do not view the labor movement as part of the problem. To me, it's part of the solution. We need to level the playing field for workers and the unions that represent their interests.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed with certain inalienable rights. We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
I think the greatest threat to America is it for a sleeping giant to remain on the sidelines. The core of our country that makes us great, it's not politicians, it's not Washington. It's 330 million Americans who understand that this is my country. And I must take a stand to make sure that my country continues to succeed. And when that happens, the sleeping giant is awake and America prospers.
Fight. We have a rich and provocative history in this state. We're at a crossroads. I know that's the most overused word in the political lexicon. I get tired of hearing it, and I certainly get tired of saying it. It just happens to be true. And the two paths that are before us in November could not be starker.
There's a group of us pushing to try and do more, pushing to use this last 7 months before the election as an opportunity to sell Republican conservative principles to the nation.
Bold. We've got to be bold about what we stand for as Republicans. We believe in individual liberties. What makes America great is not the American government, is the individual. That is supposed to have more power than government, because the Constitution is very clear on that.
Well, see, I'm optimistic because I've seen where we began, which was zero, with no elected officials, with the prospects that if anyone were to run on the Republican ticket, that they were certain to lose. And in fact, we did. But people kept on trying, beginning with the development of the Republican Party in Aiken in the 1950s, and then it spread to the cities of South Carolina, Charleston, Columbia, Greenville, with the Barry Goldwater effort. And then with Ronald Reagan in the 1980 campaign, it spread to the entire state, and then resulted in what's now super Republican majorities on the state level, because, again, standing for the principles of limited government, expanded freedom.
I was walking past Trinity Episcopal Church Monday afternoon. I was back in my office 20 minutes later. There was a crash and a thud. And when I got off work and drove up Sumter Street, I saw this huge branch. It was a massive branch on a massive tree that had been in the ground. That tree had been providing shade for the cemetery at Trinity for over 200 years. And that tree did its job for 200 years and then continued to grow and to grow and to grow and to grow. And it got to the point where the weight of that growth couldn't adhere to the trunk any longer and broke away. And I think that we as a party have probably gotten to the point where we've let government grow and grow and grow to the point we're not getting the shade, we're not getting the cover, we're not getting the protection from that government that we had intended for government to give us. And so I think that it's time for us to trim back. I think that we grow government to a point where we can't sustain government. Everybody knows that. We have a $16 trillion deficit at the federal level. The tree is allegorical to what we've done with government, federally and here in South Carolina, where we've permitted that growth to occur well beyond the point we can sustain that growth, well beyond the point we can support it and get the value out of government that we had intended.
But government is interested in itself, and it is in government's interest to continue to be. and to grow and to get bigger and to bring in more money. And how do you do that? You bring on more responsibilities, and you bring more responsibilities and you need more money, and it grows. And we've seen that exponentially. But government does not have the ability to regulate itself. Because it acts in its self-interest, from time to time it may perceive that its self-interest is in direct contradiction to the self-interest of the people that it serves, or the business community, or the religious community. And I think what we're seeing more and more is when that happens, government, which understandably is made up of individuals, but is this institution unto itself, seems to want to choose its own preservation over the preservation of the institutions that it's supposed to serve. You have to put limits on it. It's what the Constitution was designed to be in the first place. It's what the Bill of Rights was limiting the role of government.
We need a smaller, smarter, simpler government to let the American people prosper.
We can grow our economy if the government will get out of the way. I'm optimistic that once we, as conservative Republicans, take control of both the Senate and the White House, and we focus on what we know works, and that is less government, that is free markets, that's individual liberties, that is constitutional government. Those things work. It's been proven. Less taxes generate more revenue for not only the economy, but for the government. These things work.
The truth is that we have a major war going on to say and to decide the philosophical underpinnings of this nation. Do we want to move closer and closer to the verge or the edge of the far left, which in my opinion leads us towards socialism? Or do we want to move closer to where the American people, where their heart and soul is?
One is yin and one is yang. One is east and one is west. You know, there's a verse in the Bible about separating your sins as far as the east is from the west, and the truth is, philosophically, they're as far apart as you can possibly be.
This has really been a struggle since the beginning of time, political discourse, and that is, should there be faith in limited government in the people, or will it evolve sadly into elitism where you have a political elite with the power, and it's so sadly clear. We can see that, and I've seen it in my service.
Personal responsibility means I look to me first. Accountability to others means I look to me first. Nobody owes me anything except a level playing field. Government's job is to provide a level playing field.
And with individual responsibility, you have an opportunity to win, but you also have a chance to lose. And there's no federal government to bail you out if you lose. Most people would rather have the opportunity to succeed as opposed to no opportunity for neither success nor failure.
Transparency and accountability. To me, they're code words for honor and integrity. You know, Barack Obama would not have written the check to Solyndra had there been a TV camera where he was. You know, we've got to have transparency. The self-correcting nature of transparency is amazing, and without it, you don't have a good government. I got into politics, you know, I stumbled into politics. I got into politics because I didn't think our leaders worked long enough and they don't work hard enough, and I still believe that. You know, once we decide that the most important thing that in a politician's life is getting reelected, we destine ourselves to being mediocre. We've got to stop worrying about fundraising and political speeches 24/7, and we've got to do the people's business. That's the only way we get a citizenry that is truly engaged. Now, what are we going to move forward? Or are we going to keep having the same battles over and over and over? Or are we going to say we truly want efficient government? And so that means that every single one of the 9 constitutional officers has got to do their job. You know, the treasurer's job is a big job, but there are a lot of other big jobs. And until we serve the people, until we make sure that people understand we're more interested in their fortunes than our fortunes, we're more interested in their careers than our careers, until we make that understanding a reality, none of it matters.
It is vital to the future of South Carolina's economy, to our way of life, to our health, to all the things that make South Carolina special. Agribusiness and its growth is as important as any component of the future of our state, because agriculture is the foundation of the agribusiness industry, which is everything from the time a crop comes out of the ground till the time its final consumption, whether we eat it on a plate, whether we put it in a 2x4 if it's forestry, or whether we put it on our backs, be it fiber, or now put it in our gas tanks if it's a bio-based fuel. So it's a whole host of things, and if you take all of that of agribusiness, from production and processing and distribution, it has the largest impact on our economy of any industry in the state. And that's all well and good, but what we're focused on is, where can it be? Where are the areas that we can grow this industry and make it an even greater part of South Carolina's economy and help grow South Carolina's economy?
The Secretary of State's office is usually the first agency that a business wanting to do business in South Carolina comes in contact with. So I believe it's the responsibility of the Secretary of State to do everything possible to be as business friendly as possible. And the way that we've been able to do that is we've been able to offer 3 of our services online now, and that would be corporate formation, UCC filings, and charity filings. So what I'm proud to say is the Secretary of State's office in South Carolina is never closed to anyone that wants to do business here. It's all about jobs and it's all about the economy. So we want to know that South Carolina is a business-friendly state, that we're welcoming business, and we want them to invest in our state and hire the good people of this state that we know can do the job.
Individual responsibility really begins at home. And so fostering things that parents can be involved in for their children. That's programs such as school choice, which is the elementary, I think, position for state governments to allow parents to make more choices in their education of their children.
One thing that we all know is that while every child is special, every child is different. They differ enormously in ability, in motivation, the rates at which they mature, their interest, their skill set, their personality, their home environment. Yet our traditional school model puts every child in the same classroom, expects them to learn the same material in the same way on the same schedule. Should we be surprised that that doesn't work for a lot of children? Parents need to be able to choose from a wide menu of options, whether that's a Montessori school, a charter school, an online school, an arts-infused program, a math, science, and engineering program, a year-round program, a single-gender program, for some homeschooling or independent or private schools. The point is that because every child is different, one size does not fit all. We learn in different ways and at different rates, and when you put every child in the same classroom and expect the same results, it's not working. Every child should be challenged to the limit of her or his ability, no more and no less.
It is my responsibility and my wife's responsibility to provide educated citizens, educated children to society. Heavens knows I need help in math. Heavens knows I need help from school teachers when it comes to math. But if my children wound up not being educated, you need to look at me.
Our current model of education is based on an agricultural model where kids were let out of school during the summer so they could help on the farm. The United States has the shortest school year of any industrialized nation. Even agriculture has abandoned that model. We have, using technology, the ability to deliver those personalized and customized education to every student. But we've got a model that hasn't changed much in the last 100 years.
We have an excellent fighting force in South Carolina. The fact is, the crescent that we wear on our patch and we have on our flag is well known throughout Central Command as a symbol of excellence, not only with the U.S. military side, but with foreign militaries. So we are turning out very, very well-trained and innovative troops. The concern that I have is that we have put our families and our troops through a tremendous amount of stress over the last 11 years, as we've done throughout the nation. And we need to make sure that we help them address their issues. I can't live somebody else's life for them, but I need to help them address these issues, whether it be employment, whether it be traumatic stress syndrome, whether it be traumatic brain injury, whether it be a visible physical injury. We need to work through the troops on that. Our aviation guys today, just recently, are some of the very few Army aviators that are certified for carrier operations.
That's coming out of little old South Carolina. We had the responsibility just a few months ago of all of the communications in Afghanistan. We have the fighter wing that's sitting down in Kandahar right now. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Obamacare. That is probably the most prolific, far-reaching Supreme Court case that we've heard in a generation, maybe even 2 generations. What it's basically seeking to do is, it's seeking, and I'm quoting Justice Kennedy, it is seeking to fundamentally alter the relationship between the individual and their government. Basically, the government can now compel you to buy something for the sole purpose of then regulating you. That is unheard of in 200+ years of our jurisprudence, of history of this country. If they can do that, they can make you do anything. You saw how they are with the contraception mandate. They were going to force insurance companies to provide services that they may or may not want. They were going to ask make the insurance companies give away a free product. I mean, this is how far-reaching these type of cases are. When you look at the National Labor Relations Board challenging South Carolina for passing a constitutional amendment that was passed by 86.2% of the people of this state, that basically said, when voting on whether or not you want to unionize, your vote should be between you and your maker, not you and a union boss. And that is what they were challenging us on. But then we had the voter ID law. What you have here is you have the Justice Department is denying the citizens of South Carolina the protections of a law that the United States Supreme Court has already upheld for the citizens of Indiana, and that the Justice Department and the Court of Appeals has already upheld and cleared for the citizens of Georgia. There's a double standard here. South Carolina is being punished by this administration, and we have got to protect ourselves. Everywhere we go, everything that we do, there is an agenda in the court, there's an agenda in the unelected bureaucracy that is the federal government to try to pass rules and regulations that don't go before elected representatives in Congress, elected representatives who have to answer to the people. That's the check and that's the balance. We do this to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. We do this to protect and defend the Constitution of South Carolina. We do this to uphold and obey the rule of law. We do this because we're South Carolinians.